Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's VDMA Textile Machinery Web Talk. Before we are coming directly to the topic for today, I would like to start with some basic information for you. As you can see here on the first slide, you are welcome to raise your questions anytime during the following presentation via the question box in your webinar panel. We will come back later to your questions in the Q&A session. Furthermore, as a participant, you will receive the recording and all available material afterwards. The topic for today is data-controlled production, the answer for today's challenges in finishing of technical textiles. You will experience an exciting presentation. Mr. Stefan Keri and Mr. Matthias Wuhlbeck from Mahlo will show you how contemporary and Industry 4.0 compliant Mahlo process control systems are structured, as well as introduce the available broad portfolio of intelligent scanners and sensors which record product and process parameters online. After that, your questions will be answered in the mentioned Q&A session. Last but not least, you will get a short preview of the upcoming web talks as well. That's enough from my side for the introduction. Now I will hand over to our speakers, Mr. Keri and Mr. Wuhlbeck, and wish an informative presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bogun, and hello and servus from Bavaria. May I introduce my colleague, Mr. Matthias Wuhlbeck. He is in charge of the product management here at Mahlo for the QMS business, and I'm very proud to have him next to me because he knows everything about QMS.
Thank you, Stefan.
And my name is Stefan Keri. I'm in charge for the textile part of the product management, and together we want to introduce this topic about data-controlled production to you today. But as usual, I think it's meanwhile well-known business that first we have to introduce Mahlo a little bit, because there might be a few people who don't know Mahlo that well. We have been founded in 1945 already, so we go back 78 years now, not quite 77. We didn't come to our annual celebration because of the pandemic, so it was lost a little bit. We are a family-owned business in third generation, and this is not just a phrase, it really is a spirit of this company ever since, and to be quite frank, it is really a good thing to be part of that family, also from the feelings. We have 250 people who are working for us, and our headquarters are here in Germany and also will be in the future. So we are really a German company from the soul and also from the spirit. We are present in over 100 countries, have 5 subsidiaries, and we have 70 agencies and 40 service agencies worldwide. This is very important because all of you out there, you have a direct contact to somebody who knows our business with the own tongue and in your own time zone. And this is very important to us because we are totally convinced that the first machine is sold by the sales guys, but all the others are sold by the service guys, because they have to maintain the machines and they have to make sure that you are feeling comfortable with the machine you have bought some years back. So what else? The family, of course. This is Mr. Late Mr. Mahlo, who founded that company in 45. His wife took over, and ever since 2015, the third generation is in charge, and the fourth generation is also already present sometimes at exhibitions. Some benchmarks, quite important, not all of them, but in 1948, we already started with the process control. It was the first process control in the history of textiles. At that time, it was the measurement of the residual moisture and the closed loop system, which is controlling the speed of the sander to make sure that you always have the right speed of the sander. Then in 59, the perhaps most important innovation in the history of textiles, the weft straightener, and in 95 we started with the QMS, with the quality management systems, and yeah, it was so successful that in 2018 we already built the all new production of that quality management system. The 5 subsidiaries that I was talking about are in Belgium, in Spain, Italy, in the US, and we also have, of course, our headquarters here in Germany, and in China we are also present with a rep office. So the core competence that we are building up is the weft trading and the process control in the textile field and in the nonwovens, and this is the last sheet of the presentation of the company. We have the online measurement and the control of basis, weight, moisture, thickness, and density. And Matthias will tell you a little bit more of those details. Matthias, your
Thank you, Stefan.
presentation.
So I have the pleasure to talk about the web gauging system QualiScan. QMS is the brand name, and this system is working for online measurement with sensors that move over the entire web. And today we will show you what you can do with it and what is the sense of it. Let's take a brief look at the current political situation in the world. I do not want to lose too many words about it, but the corona disease is still affecting our global supply chains. We have bottlenecks in many machine components, and important for you, in many raw materials, especially coming from Asia. The transportation possibilities are very limited since still many harbors, seaports in China and in Far East are in lockdown. And the latest Ukraine crisis affects the energy industry. The result of this is that we have to face significantly increased costs for the raw material, supplier parts that affects our machine business mainly, and energy. And this is not enough. We have unpredictable delivery times and a great uncertainty of the availability for energy in the future. What happens if they cut down the gas supply completely? Nobody knows what will happen then. So the savings of energy and raw material has always been a very important topic anytime, and is more important today than ever before. The climate protection, of course, is the biggest issue, but in the meantime, we have to consider as well the economic survival of the manufacturers themselves. For this reason, all modern web processes demand constant control of the production parameters. The quality depends on fast correction of all variation, and a high quality product for a reasonable cost cannot produce in a blind flight. What can we achieve with an online quality control? First of all, we are able to minimize the energy input down to a minimum. Another point is that we achieve the product quality as well with a minimum of the raw material. We avoid a bad quality and the rejects. So we have to optimize the machine utilization, and we avoid double work and time for the reproduction of the rejects. Just let's take a look at the philosophy of online quality control. If you look at this graph, we see the red curve that shows our process, let's say like a non-woven production, and this parameter might be the basis weight. So without a control, we have a certain target value and a spread of the parameters. In a first step, when we use the online control, we are able to decrease the spread of the parameters significantly. Yeah. And in a second step, we move our target value down to the lowest tolerance range. And the difference of this is the material that we can save with the active online process control. An example from the non-woven production, let's think about a needle punched non-woven, which comes from the card and a cross lapper. Here the red profile shows us a very typical situation of an uncontrolled process. In the edges of the web, we have more fiber material because the cross lapper brings more fibers into the edges left and right, and the result is such a bathtub profile, or also called a smile profile, with some big deviation inside. For instance, with a CV value of 5%, by using automatic measuring and control system, we know the cross profile of the weight very well. We submit the data to the machine control, and we achieve a very smooth cross profile over the entire width with a very good CV value. And in addition to that, we can lower the total target weight value to the minimum, and the material savings are in a range that go up to 12%. So we have a much better product with a high uniformity and a high material saving in this case. Another process is spun lace non-woven, and that includes also a drying process. In that case, we typically measure the basis weight profile in combination with the residual moisture after the drying. So what does this mean? When we know the residual moisture, then we can control the input energy exactly to the minimum. There is no need to over dry the web in case of preventing problems like mold, for instance, in the final product. So we make sure that our product will leave the machine with the right residual moisture. And even here we achieve savings up to 10% in energy. Here we see an installation of such a scanner with a combined system for basis weight and moisture in a non-woven process line installed at one of our customers in Turkey named Selçuk İplik. And we have here the scanner, the two sensors, and they move continuously over the entire web width and detect the cross profiles. Mahlo offers a wide range of different scanners for each purpose, for each web width, beginning from fixed installed sensors up to huge machines with web of 7.5 meters in width. But the most important thing are the sensors itself. So what can we control? What can we measure online? This is the basis weight is the most common type of measurement that we use. For this, we have beta, X-ray sensors. We offer moisture sensors based on infrared and microwave, product thickness with laser or shadow thickness. For all filter material, we have Air Permeability sensor in our program, and we can detect single components of the of the material mix as well. Let's go just briefly through this selection of sensors that are used in non-woven industry as well as textile coating, for instance. The most common system is the basis weight sensor based on beta gauge. This is using a radioisotope, krypton 85 or strontium 90, a very old technology, very easy to handle and achieving very stable measuring results, but they require radiation safety on site. So if you want to use this type of sensor, you need to have radiation safety offices in your factory, and you must apply for a license to use it. So for this reason, many manufacturers are looking for non-nuclear alternatives, and one of them is an X-ray sensor, which works very similar, but instead of using a radioisotope, we have an X-ray tube in different strengths. And the nice thing, the small one with 5 kilovolt, you can use it completely license-free. In fact, we must exactly know what is the weight range, what is the type of fiber, and so on, and then we can select the right system for you. For the moisture, we are using two technologies. One is the microwave system, which directly reacts on the water content in the web. And this is very well working on thick material with high water content, because it has a very strong penetration through the web and is not limited to thickness or weight of the web. Another technology comes more and more into focus. It is using infrared light and detects the absorption of the infrared light at certain wavelengths. We see this here. And the thing is that on each of these wavelengths, we get a signal for a certain material. So in the most simple application, we measure the water, let's say the residual moisture, at this bandwidth at 1920 nanometers. The infrared light will be absorbed in this wavelength, and the signal shows us with very high accuracy the true residual moisture of the material. But not only the moisture can be detected, but organic fibers like PET, PE, polypropylene, polyamide, PVC, and many others can also be detected in certain wavelengths. So also the infrared measuring system in many cases is capable to measure the basis weight as well, and at the same time a residual moisture, just using one type of the sensors. The infrared system can be in two different versions. One is working with a reflecting signal. Yeah, so the detector and the light source is in the same sensor head. This is very good to measure surface, to measure coating on the surface. For this application, the infrared reflection is a good choice. Or if you want to penetrate through the wet for a residual moisture, for instance, then we have the same system in transmission measuring modus. The thickness can also be detected in different way. One system is a combination using a laser sensor for measuring the distance to the web surface. And a second sensor is measuring a distance to a metallic reference. Yeah? When we look at this sketch, then we see a double-sided laser thickness measurement. One is detecting the distance to the upper surface, and the second one, the lower surface. And this radio frequency sensor tells us the distance in between the sensor head itself. So this is a non-contacting thickness measurement with a quite high accuracy and very often used on nonwoven applications. An alternative to this is using a reference roller, and the web is running over this roller in a 60-degree angle or some more. And instead of using a laser, we take an LED light that we send over the shoulder of this roller. And the width of the detected light is our signal for the material thickness. Also in this case, we use the radio frequency sensor to measure the distance to the reference roller itself. The benefit of this system is that this method is not affected by a very uneven or open structured material surface. Here we see a combination of a basis weight sensor plus a thickness sensor. So in this example, we have a measurement of basis weight and thickness at the same time. And we can also calculate the web density in this case. Last but not least, for our non-woven and technical textile products, it might be very helpful to know the air permeability. In the last 2 years, we were all affected with a certain product that everyone knows very well. And here we can imagine how important it is to have a good air permeability, so it makes it more comfortable to wear these things. But not only for the face masks, but for industrial filters, liquid filters, air filters, and so on. We can use an online air permeability sensor, also in combination with all other type of sensors like weight, moisture sickness, and so on. Here we see a system. In this crosscut, we have the Mahlo scanner with an included basis weight sensor. And here we have the air permeability sensor that works with a vacuum, taking the air through the web and determining the air permeability. What do we see on our video screen? So with a very quick look, we see immediately the situation of the cross profile. Are all our detected values inside the tolerance range, or are they exceeding? We see the trend in the length direction and also in a two-dimensional heat map with color shades, which immediately informs us about the situation of our product in the length and cross direction. All maintenance is done on a video touchscreen, so there is no keyboard and mouse and so on required. What do we do with all the data the system is collecting? So one interesting option is to put all these data into a short quality protocol. So we can get this for each roll produced, and even here we see over the entire length where our detected values are. If you like to have it more detailed, we can also use a data-based system, and there we have the possibility to dive into this ocean of data and pick out each single information. Stefan will give you later on a nice overview about this system. And all the data can be communicated with the process control of our production line. We can get and send data with all typical interfaces like Profinet, OPC, Modbus, and so on. So the production line always knows the quality produced and can take its action to increase the quality and to lower the energy and raw material input. So far from my side. Thank you for joining, and now I give back to Stefan.
Thank you very much, Matthias. And I want to take you now into this interesting and exciting field of textiles, which is also and in particular important for all the technical textiles out there. Why is it so important to have a process control during all those textile processes? Simply because we are talking about bottlenecks. If you are having a bottleneck, and everybody has a bottleneck in the production, you have to make everything available, possible to extend that bottleneck. Because this bottleneck, gentlemen, this bottleneck defines the pace of your production. This bottleneck dictates whether or not your bleaching range, your mercerizing, your dyeing machines are producing in the pace that they should do. Most of the times we are talking about a standard here, the drying machine, because all the wet processes, they have to be dried in order to pass on to the next process. And if you don't dry enough fabric, and then of course you don't have enough fabric for the dyeing at the pattern, or all the fabric which is piling up, which has already been dyed, waits to be dried. So it is absolutely unnecessary to put that much into the dyeing machines if you're not able to dry it. So having all that said, the bottleneck of production needs to be looked at, and the bottleneck needs to be controlled in order to maximize and optimize the entire production of your company. So if we're talking about that, the best energy and the cheapest energy and the most valuable energy that you can have is the energy that you don't use, that you save. And another topic is also quite important, and this is the safety margin. If you are not sure about the capabilities of your machine, and if you don't control it to the extent, and what do? Of course, you go a little bit slower, just in order to make sure that the fabric is really dry, or that the heat setting is really reached. So in order to just ensure the quality of your product, you slow down the entire process, which is on top of it real poison for your production. So we are actually solving two subjects with one solution. This is the safety margin, which might sound quite good because of course you ensure the quality, but it steals your production, it steals your efficiency. And on the other hand, of course, you are just boosting your production by opening up the bottleneck. This is what process control will do for your entire production. And on top of that, it ensures a quality, because there is no gray zone anymore. There's just either a wrong or a right, and Mahlo is the synonym for right production. So let's just dive in. This is a standard. And you see already there is the weft straightener, there is the heat or the temperature of the surface that we can control. There is the air inside the ständer that we can control, and the fans which are linked to it. We can control the weight of the fabric. We can control the residual moisture, which is also very, very important. And then, of course, we can control the distortion, which is actually the most important thing. And in an earlier web talk, we said that there's no excuse for distortion anymore, and this is why I want to start with it. Mahlo definitely has the widest range of sensors to detect distortion. We have a optoelectronic system, we have a camera-based system, we have a PCS system which is controlling the pattern. So whatever is needed to rule your production, you can be sure that we have it. All you have to do is talk to us and we will find the right solution for you. We don't have to take what we have, we can really take what is best for you because we have such a wide range of different sensors in our portfolio. So we have also on our website a lot of white papers which are quite interesting, and just dive through the website and you will find some knowledge about the scanning systems and some other important data which might help you to solve your problems and which will sensibilize you already for the different issues that might occur in conjunction with the weft straightening issues. Another thing that comes into our thinking when we talk about the scanning is the scanning mode. As Matthias said early on, we have traversing systems in the QMS for the nonwovens, and of course we have our traditional and well-known fixed sensors which are looking at some areas of the fabric side by side. We have had a lot of talks about using those sensors as well for the textile industry. However, we know very well how those industries look like that. It is sometimes a very unfriendly environment. In most of the cases, it's an environment which is totally poisoning for sensors which are traversing. And no matter what precautions you take, it is always affecting all the moving parts. And if you have just one sensor which is traversing, and this sensor or the traverse is stopping, and then you have nothing, you are blindfolded. And this is another advantage that we have when we have 4, 6, or 8 sensors side by side. If there's one sensor which is not working for what reason ever, the others will cover up and you can still run your production with the residual sensors. And this will not happen if you just have one sensor which is traversing from one side to the other 24/7 and 365 days a year. So it is just a matter of safety and security if you are having a fixed sensor installation like Mahlo is having that already since the beginning of the weft straightening. So this is the case how it looks like. So we're having this number of sensors depending on the working width of the fabric, which is defined for the best scanning, and everything else is actually just pure looking. And it goes without saying that these data points are collecting much more data, are more correct and precise than any other system. And I think the amount of systems that we have sold in the last decades are also talking for themselves. Another thing, of course, is the well-known closed loop control. Together with the university here in Germany, we have worked out and developed software which can predict the future. So you will not get the numbers of the lottery for next week, but you can already see how a detection will develop in the near future within the next second. So what that means for your weft straightener is quite clear. The mechanics don't need to go to the extent because they know exactly when the distortion is coming to a stop and the software is telling it, it can already stop early on. That means that you don't have to spend so much energy in the distortion correction. And on top of that, of course, the mechanics are not under such a high pressure as without that software. And that means your wear and tear and your maintenance efforts will go down as well. So here with that software, on top of that, you will save a lot of money on top. So the talking about the sensors, another thing that we do with the sensors is we can control the density. At the entry of a stentor, we can count precisely every single thread, and together with the speed of that system, which is giving us the distance and the meterage, we can exactly tell the density of the fabric, and having just in mind how much brutal force is coming towards a textile good, from the weaving or the knitting to the finished goods. I mean, we have so much stretching and so much mechanical and thermal force and all the chemicals, and it is really quite a very, very big thing which is happening with these textiles. Here we fix it. We simply fix it by controlling the overfeed according to the numbers that we have detected with that sensor on top of that. So that means that the density will always the same when we have such a density sensor, the pick counter in front of it. And in back, we have another sensor specialized for that particular purpose. And this is a camera-based sensor, not the optoelectronic, which is best for the front. Here in the back, we have a camera-based sensor because here we just want to see the full picture, not only the single threads. Here we really want to see the total fabric from the top to calculate the weight. So if we have the weight of the single threads, here we can combine the weft and the warp, and we can give you a very good indication about the weight, which is quite important for the calendaring or the packaging for all the subjects compared or in conjunction with knitted goods, for example. So this is something which we also can provide in terms of the process control. Another thing where you can save already 10% of your production is the dwell time and heat setting. Here we look to the temperature of the surface of the fabric, which is quite important, because if you start a heat setting process, you need to know when does it start, because at the beginning you only have the temperature of the condensated moisture, and only when it reaches the temperature for the heat setting, you have to start counting the time to finalize the process in the right time. And again, here we are fighting the safety margin, because you don't have to wait 1.5 minutes if you only need 1 minute, when you know exactly when the point is reached, when this heat setting starts, exactly the temperature. And like that, you can increase your production by 10%. This might sound little if you are looking at the meterages. Yeah, instead of 30, you run 33 meters a minute, but just calculate that number, that amount over the annual production of standard. This is really already something that might help you in the turnover and the numbers of your financial background at the end of the year. Another thing is the exhaust air control. Here we are actually with one sensor fighting two things. If you are looking into the process of the stentering or the drying, we have all the energy that is needed to get the moisture out of the fiber. But this is only one part of the story. The more important part is how to get that moisture out of the system, because if you have a system which is filled with moisture, which is saturated, then you can't get back or can't get out any more moisture. So as important as the drying as such is the fan which transports the moisture out of the system. So this fan normally is running full throttle just in order to get as much moisture out of the system. But together with this moisture, we also have temperature. This moisture is hot, hot, hot, and this energy should remain in the center because energy is needed there where it should be hot. So to find the right balance between the moisture, the hot moisture, and of course the space for new moisture is the art that we are looking at, and it saves two things. First of all, we are getting the right temperature with much less energy. It saves so much energy just by having all that important and very high temperature moisture inside. And on the other side, even perhaps more important these days, where the electricity is rising like hell, the fans are not always running now with full throttle. They are controlled into the right speed to get just enough moisture out to have enough space for the moisture which is coming back, but it is not running too fast because it is saving the hot moisture inside the stander. So you are saving first the electricity of this fan, and secondly, you are saving all the energy which is needed for the drying of the fabric. So here again, you can save so much, saving energy up to 25%. And we know that these days energy is rising like hell. So if you don't have a system like that yet, you should really start thinking about it. Another thing, and perhaps, yeah, this is where Mahlo started the process control with, and I haven't seen production yet, which doesn't have the residual moisture control. So it's quite easy. We do have those sensors at the very end of the stander, at the very end of the drying process, and it gives you a good indication about the residual moisture. And we know very well that cotton is a hygroscopic fiber. That means it takes back the moisture from the surface, from the environment. So for example, if you over dry a fabric and then automatically it gets back the moisture from the environment to residual moisture of 8–9% or something like that. And this is just something that this cotton fiber is doing automatically. So if you dry more than the 8%, and then you're just wasting money because it gets back the moisture anyway from the environment. And on top of that, if you have the fabric on an A-frame afterwards, and it doesn't have the chance to take back that 8% moisture from the environment, what happens in the center of that A-frame? The fabric is bone dry, and on the outer surface, it has that 8% or 10%, depending on where you are, but you have a discrepancy and a very high balance between the center and the outer layer. What is happening if you're using such a fabric for a padding process, cold bed batch fabric, or any padding process? Quite logical. You will have a totally wasted fabric afterwards. And here we are at the very end of that value-added chain. That means here you have already invested so much money in work, in machinery, in energy, in raw material, in everything. And if you are now wasting all that fabric, there's a lot of money which is just simply going down the drain. And those little helpers like the exhaust air control or the residual moisture control or the heat setting control, and of course the weft straighteners, they help you just to control that valuable fabric here, that it doesn't get wasted. Another thing is the can dryers. A lot of people have those can dryers, and they are already perhaps from the last century, and they are normally already delivered together with a continuous range. Also here, we can get you the right valves and all the right infrastructure to divide those can dryers. Most of the time it's 36 or 24 units to separate them, that you don't overdry the fabric and that you are having exactly the right and necessary residual moisture at the end. That might be a little bit complicated to install, but we help you. And here we get savings from more than 35% in energy. And again, also here, we guarantee that you have a very stable and constant residual moisture, which avoids things like the different moisture and the different pickup during a padding process. So, as well and as important as the machines and the sensors as such are, of course, the operators. And if you have an operator who is enjoying and understanding what he's doing, it is helping a lot. And we have very intuitive, application-oriented and adjustable controls. We have asked a lot of operators how we should do it, and we have taken all the information into our systems. So it's very intuitive, and a lot of people said that Steve Jobs copied us when he invented the Apple Surface, but I think they're not right. However, it is very important that we have actually this operating concept, which allows us to have a good, understandable operation, but it is as important these days to have the right tools to get the data to the right steps. Matthias already started with it, but the importance those days with the Internet of Things and with Industry 4.0 is so high that we have really put a focus on that data transfer, because as we said earlier on, the data management or the collection of the data is our DNA already since decades. But to take that data now and transfer it to the necessary steps, this is new, and we are actually quite proud that we were in the very front row of the data management systems in textile business ever since, to increase the transparency inside and outside. Because on the one side, you need that data to improve. The constant improvement is absolutely important if you want to survive these days, and the data helps you. You need to have that data to control not only the process, you also have to control the people, you have to control the other things that are linked to that. And therefore, it is so important to collect that data, to speak with the data, to manage by data these days. So the other thing, of course, is to have a closed loop controls, that you have all the adjustments done and that you can ensure the target values with all things. So the M-log system that Matthias was talking about earlier on is not only a collection of data, it also helps you to get hold of that data when you need it in a very short period of time, and also in a very high security. We have in the M-log enhanced system, we even have two big hard disk drives which are sitting next to each other. So if there's a power failure in your production, the other hard disk will take over automatically and will make sure that no single bit is lost, and that you can always rely that the data is ensured, and you can collect data for decades, and you can take them out if you need it according to a very smart system. So here you can look at pick counts, at density, at weight, at moisture, whatever is needed at every single minute of the production way back. You can look at the operators during night shift. So this is giving you a very good transparency about every process in your production. And of course, it is also important to see that all our systems that we've talked about can be very easily integrated into every single production unit which is existing. So with these systems, you can very easily and fast upgrade every system into a very innovative and a very sophisticated system, even if it's already a couple of decades old. Just speak to us and we can give you a good indication of the right steps. As you said early on, we have the right interfaces to connect you to everywhere in the world. And yes, of course, we also have a good service. Service is something that I was talking again earlier on. So again, if you are not linked to all the service stations worldwide that we have, you can also collect all the data either from our webpage or directly from us with a team viewer and with direct access to our machines. So this is also possible in a remote way. What we also have is a very good website where we have Instagram, we have YouTube videos, we are also in Facebook and on Instagram. So just follow us and see what we can offer. We have a wide range of information for you. And I think to give you some room for your questions, if there are any, I will finish now and say thank you very much for your time and for your interest. And I hope that we could inspire you to think about your production and to be more process orientated and to improve your overall production in terms of the quality control. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Keri and Mr. Wohlbeck, up to this point for the great presentation. And of course, we are now coming to the mentioned Q&A session. This means if you haven't done so already, please do not hesitate to enter your questions in the question box right now, and we will answer these questions right now. And I will take a look if we have any questions yet. Okay, I can see one first question that came in. I will just read it out, Mr. Keri, Mr. Wohlbeck, and you can try to answer it.
Okay.
So the first question is, you talked about infrared sensor used for moisture and weight, but infrared sensors can be sensitive in case of moisture compared to capacitive systems. Do you have any capacitive sensors also in your product range?
Ob wir auch capacity sensors haben?
No, we are not using capacity sensors for the moisture on textile that Stefan has described. We measure the electrical conductivity, and the non-contacting systems we use are based on infrared or microwave technology. So for each and every purpose, we have a right system that that will work for the measurement.
All right, so thank you for this question and the answer. I will take a look if we have any more open questions yet, but I cannot see any more questions for the moment, but we will just wait a little bit longer to give you time to enter your question. Of course.
Is there a reason why we don't have conductivity sensors? What is the disadvantage of this conductivity sensors?
Well, the conductivity measuring method is very simple to do. Mm-hmm. You can have it as an online system that we have seen, as well as a portable moisture meter. And for those natural fibers that contain a certain natural moisture, it is, let's say, the easiest way for the measurement, and also cost-wise very attractive.
Mm-hmm. Is our DMB 15 not based on the conductivity?
Conductivity, yes.
Good. So we do have it.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, so I can see one more question that came in, and this is about Mahlo is attending at the ITM in Istanbul next week, this trade fair. Can you give the stand number already? Do you know the stand number or?
Yes, we could, but we want to invite to visit our website, which is much more, which is filled with much more information, and therefore it is actually on the website, and you can find it there.
Okay.
Just
so
take a look. And
exactly.
there's many other things to explore as well.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mahlo.com.
If there's any other questions after today's web talk, of course, you're welcome to join to visit the web page from Mahlo, and you can find the contact information. And so this is also no problem. All right.
And by the way, you also can find on our homepage a lot of explanations, especially for certain applications as well as for the web gauging, as also for special applications in weft straightening.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of videos with these two guys, you know, from your screen, and so you find a very detailed information as well.
That's right.
Okay, so I think that's enough for our Q&A session today. But I still can see some questions that came in, but don't worry. Any question that we could not answer today will be forwarded to the speakers and to Mahlo, and you will receive, of course, your answer by email afterwards. So, do you have any final words to the participants, Mr. Kiri, Mr. Woolbeck?
Of course. If you would like to see us on the Textile in Frankfurt, you are very welcome. We are really looking forward to see real people and not just a screen in front of us. And we are absolutely keen that the real life for us starts again. And I hope that you all have been gone through this terrible time without any infection, and that you're all in good health and good and great spirit. And I wish you a good time. We wish you a good time, and hope to see you again as real people at one of our fairs which are coming up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, so thanks again from my side for the great presentation, and of course, many thanks to the audience. I would like to take this opportunity to give you some, to draw your attention to the upcoming web talks as well. You can see it right now on your screen. The next edition will take a closer look at industrial yarn melt spinning solutions. Furthermore, on the 21st of June, we'll start our series of spotlight talks within the mentioned Textile Trade Fair in Frankfurt. So make sure to check the agenda, and you are very welcome to register for the upcoming dates. Have a nice day and goodbye.